Hey there, Kevin Chung again from the class of 2023, and I'm here to share a big update. Like with many folks also in the same class as me, we have all graduated from UCLA Anderson. And I was fortunate enough to also be the commencement speaker. So on behalf of the class, I really wanted to talk about things that I think embodied us collectively as the class of 2023, which there were successes, there were emotional pains, there were things related to the pandemic in the first 2 years that we were dealing with. So I really wanted to capture all of those different stressful moments, but yet the memorable ones as well, both funny and reflective, that I think really represented the class quite well. And for me, what I think was really valuable about commencement for us this year was the fact that if we had participated in a commencement a few years prior, during the peak of the pandemic, a lot of the in-person things we were able to finally experience after a few years would not have been possible. So I think for that reason, it was really the first true moment where all of us, in the flesh, were gathered together to celebrate what we've all experienced and gone through the past few years. So when I entered UCLA Anderson, what goals did I set for myself and what have I accomplished? Hopefully what I'm talking about as goals now that I remember are the same or at least similar than the earlier videos I recorded. So hopefully Kevin of 3 years ago will be a bit more lenient around those. But as far as I remember, I was going into this program to, number one, no particular order though, number one, to get settled in the LA area and to really have a network that I feel like I'm well connected with. So that I feel like was check accomplished. The second piece was a bit of a split around what I envisioned myself doing as a result of going to Anderson, either which was to start my own business with people I met in the program, or to continue upskilling my career and my background in product management and to work in a position post Anderson that was more influential on the strategic side and really thinking more about, how a business overall from the visionary perspective can move forward. And so for me, I am signing a role that I do think reflects this from the product management perspective. Now, from starting up a business, the BCO project I worked on didn't necessarily go into that stage of founding a business that we would continue working with. However, there are other businesses now with fellow students that I'm considering working on or joining as part of, the growing team. So from that perspective, I would say another checkbox, but in a way that I didn't necessarily anticipate first going into Anderson. So one of the most challenging parts of my MBA experience was actually towards the very tail end of the program, where I had completed enough credits to graduate early, but I was also graduating, and many folks in the class of 2023 can reflect on this. We're graduating into a job environment that obviously took us a bit by surprise in terms of how challenging it has been to be placed into positions. So the question for me was in deciding, should I stick around and continue extending my MBA experience, taking the courses past the 80 credit limit that we had at no additional cost, or graduating early and really accelerating the job search. In the end, I graduated in March and then accelerated my job search in the months after that. And despite the challenges that I experience, especially in this day and age around you apply, you don't hear back from people, you wonder if you're still qualified, you beat yourself up thinking, well, is this MBA valid for me because I'm not getting back from folks, even from folks that helped me get referred into these positions. But hearing from a lot of fellow members of my class, I think they've experienced similar challenges. But the good news is a lot of folks, especially in the Fully Employed program, because we've already had that career experience, thankfully are able to get into positions, including myself, that have, upskilled our position and our ability to influence within companies. So I think in the end, many of us are still overcoming that challenge among the class of 2023. But personally, I felt like that decision to graduate early and split the full-time in study with full-time job search, because as we know, job search is a job in and of itself. I think by doing that, I was able to really focus on what I want to do next and get to the next stage after my Anderson experience. So the mountaintop moment of my MBA was when actually I had just come back up from the top after going at the deepest of lows. And so perhaps this was like summiting Mount Whitney, for those familiar with California topography, after wandering around Death Valley for a little bit, not being sure where exactly I was going to head into. But towards the tail end of my MBA experience, I was participating, while I was still looking into jobs and what was next, into a variety of business case competitions, from the Kellogg design competition, where the team I worked with, we ended up in the finals in person in Chicago at Northwestern University, where the Kellogg School of Management is located. And we were able to finish in, the top 3 with a cash prize from the automaker Nissan for a redesign of their EV vehicles based on the rising work from home trends. In addition to that, I also joined in on another BCO team. So the business creation option is something that you may consider going into the FEMBA program. And we were able to also get placed in the semifinals in the NAP competition and also get some cash prizes from there. So it felt very redeeming to be participating in all angles of competitions related to design thinking, customer-centric research, but also in business plan development, market research, and things that are more tailored to the NAP side of things. So I felt like all of those collectively were really starting to make me realize that I had learned quite a lot in the past 3 years. And yes, I wasn't necessarily placed in a job immediately after graduation, but all of these other side hustles through the network that I built from the Anderson experience and through competitions that were made available to us as students, those I think were great help in adding to the career-oriented experience that would ultimately help me land my next position. So now that I've completed my MBA, what am I most excited for? I'm most excited in taking the theories and the exercises, the concepts we've learned from all of the various classes, both from the core segment as well as in the electives, and applying those into now starting to influence a personal perspective or a thought that I have on a direction that my fellow colleagues at work or my fellow co-founders from starting a business can start to take on. And I think before Anderson, I was someone who was cautious in forming an opinion because there's a possibility that you're wrong. There's a possibility that you're right. And that's still the case today. But now you have the ability to reinforce the reason behind why you're making such decisions with tools that for someone like me were not really visible and available until I really attended Anderson. These are things like how to read a balance sheet, how to look at strategy and competition from the lens of, let's say, for example, Porter's 5 Forces, and also thinking about from the venture capitalist perspective, if you're fundraising, how exactly do funds work? How long do they last in time? What type of, IRRs are you supposed to be achieving from them? So these are things that now I feel like are much more accessible and things that I can talk confidently on that will enable me to, be more bold and step into leadership and step into a perspective where, yes, I could still be wrong or I could still be right. But now I feel like I have more confidence in saying why we need to go in a particular direction. And that's what excites me the most.